is operating costing? Operating costing is a method of costing designed to ascertain and control the cost of services. Those industries or organizations which do not produce any product but render some service to customer can use this method. According to Weldon, operating costing actually is unit costing as applied to the cost of services. So in this session, we say that operating costing is basically the part of costing of services, and we discussed about job costing, batch costing. They were all a part of production of a particular product. But in this whole costing subject, we have discussed many aspects, but we didn't talk about services. So operating costing is very unique in itself because in this we talked about aspects related to the costing of services. So there are large number of organizations where goods are not produced but services are rendered. The cost incurred for rendering services by these organizations is termed as operating costing. And operating costing refers to the cost of undertaking which do not manufacture any product but render services to the customers. So in order to determine the total cost and per unit cost of services rendered by organizations providing or operating services on the basis of expenditure incurred for the services and determining the per unit selling price of service, the method which is applied is known as operating costing. Thus, operating costing is a method designated to ascertain and control the cost of the undertaking which do not produce products but which render services. Operating cost applies where standardized services are provided by an undertaking or by a service cost center within an undertaking. The operating cost method is similar to the unit cost method or output cost method, as the cost per unit of the service rendered is required to be ascertained in this method by preparing the cost sheet. So like other methods of costing where we prepare job cost sheet, where we prepare batch cost sheet, contract cost account and so on, and simple cost sheet while we are manufacturing any product. So in this particular operating cost sheet also we prepare the operating cost sheet. The difference between the cost sheet of the output and cost sheet of service lies in the adoption of suitable cost unit, the collection, analysis and allocation of cost to the cost units. Now next is scope of cost operating costing. As we have already discussed that operating costing is simply the costing of the services, and every aspect of service whatever we are providing is covered under operating costing, like transport services like railway, trams, truck, air and marine transport, supply services, gas, water, electricity. We talk about welfare services. Welfare services like hospital, library, hostel, canteen, education, hotel, cafeteria, etc. These are all covered in welfare services. Entertainment services like cinema, circus, like social platforms. You have all those like these movies platform and all, Netflix, Amazon. These are all your entertainment services. Municipal services like road maintenance, street light, etc. These are all your municipal services, and the costing of these services is very as important as the costing of any product. In order to determine whether when we are providing these services we are incurring profit or losses, so operating cost sheet has become a mandatory requirement when a firm is providing any kind of services. Next is characteristics of operating costing method. Unique nature. Undertakings are engaged in providing and operating services of unique nature, means any service you are providing has some unique features of it. As we have talked about, if you are providing transport services, so it will be having some unique features which will be different from the entertainment services. So if you are providing entertainment services will have a unique feature will be different from the welfare services. So every service has its unique nature of one. Large amount of capital expenditure is invested. So in capital, a large amount of capital expenditure is invested in capital assets of the undertaking depending upon the nature of the business. That is, trucks, buses, wagons, equipments, building, railway, engines, ships, etc. These are the large services where large amount of capital expenditure is invested in case of services. Classification of cost. So the like other costing method, the cost has been classified into fixed and variable cost, and variable cost, as these have significant on the cost per unit. Low amount of working capital. So low amount of working capital is required to meet the day-to-day operating expenses. As we talk about the manufacturing firm, in manufacturing firm we know that large amount of working capital is a basic requirement, where we are when we are providing when we are manufacturing any sort of a product, we usually have a certain operating cycle, and in that operating cycle working capital cycle holds a lot of importance. But in case of operating costing method, there is a very low amount of working capital which is a requirement. So in this particular session, we will be dealing with the computation of operating cost of specific services. There can be transport, powerhouse, hotel operating, canteen, and hospital operating, cinema operating costing methods can be there. And in this particular session, we will be dealing with the transport costing operating procedure. Transport costing operating procedure. In this particular session, we will be discussing how to determine the cost of transport services provided by the transport organizations. The following accounting procedure, like collection of transport cost, classification of transport cost, construction of operating cost sheet. Now, collection of transport cost. For determination of service cost in transport organization, all the costs related to transport services is collected continuously. Generally, in these type of organization, detailed informations as regard to each variable is collected. For this purpose, a separate logbook is kept for each vehicle. Now, classification of transport cost. We will be studying this in when we will try to understand the performer, and these two parts, like 2 points: classification of transport cost, construction of transport cost, we will be basically studying with the help of a format. So let us understand the format. First, we will write, whenever we are preparing any operating cost sheet, first we will make the format. Format is prepared as particular, per annum or per month, and next will be per kilometer. This is basically a operating cost sheet when we are talking about only one vehicle. In particular column, we have to mention first standing charges. Let's make it more presentable. This is one column. We will write standing charges. Standing charges. What are standing charges? These are fixed charges. Basically, these are fixed charges, and these expenses are those expenses which are bound to be incurred irrespective of the fact whether vehicle is running or not. For example, interest on financing of a vehicle, rent, you can say, road license fee, insurance premium, road tax, depreciation, garage rent, monthly salary of driver, conductor, or cleaner, salary of a supervisor, stationery expenses, office expenses. These are all your standing charges. So you can write over here what are your standing charges. That is depreciation of vehicle. It could be insurance of vehicle. Next could be your tax, license fee, etc. Next is interest. Next is administration expenses. So these are your standing charges. So I'll make this in bold so that you have more clarity when you are studying it. Next is you have maintenance charges. First is your standing charges. Second is your running or maintenance charges. Maintenance charges, which are also known as your running charges. So this could be your garage staff salaries. Next is your it can be your garage other expenses. Next, it could be your repairs and renewals. Overhauling expenses. Cleaning expenses. So these are all your expenses. Next is you can also do subtotal of it. A column has to be prepared for subtotal. You can write subtotal. Next is your operating or running charges. Operating or running charges. First is petrol. Next is oil and grease. Next is salaries of running staff. Running staff. Next could be your driver. Yes, it can be your driver. Next is mechanic. Next is cleaner. Another one is depreciation. Depreciation on tires. Next can be on battery. So these are your expenses. Now you will again do what you will do, it's subtotal. Now fourth step while preparing the operating cost sheet. You need to do the total of operating costing. Operating costing. So it will be your 1 plus 2 plus 3. Operating cost per ton kilometer. Total operating cost upon total ton kilometer. So it will be total operating cost divided by total ton kilometer. Next is operating cost per passenger kilometer, which is equal to total operating cost upon total passenger kilometer. Revenue, then sixth will be your net profit. Next is your ton kilometer carried. Kilometer carried. Next is cost per ton kilometer. Cost per ton kilometer. So this is your format for operating cost sheet. What we have done over here, we have three columns: per kilometer, particular, per annum or per month, per kilometer. Standing charges, as we have talked about, standing charges are those charges which are basically fixed and which do not vary with the running of vehicles, and they anyhow the person has to pay these kind of charges. It is your depreciation of vehicle, insurance of vehicle, tax license fee, interest, administration expenses, subtotal. We will do and we will write in this particular column. Next is your maintenance or running charges. Maintenance charges, these expenses are incurred on the upkeep and on maintaining the vehicle in running condition. The example of such expenses are repairs and maintenance, renewal and overhauling of vehicles, cost of tires, garage expenses, salary and expenses of garage staff, consumable stores. We have not shown here, but it is a part of your maintenance charges and minor equipments. So these are all your maintenance charges. Next is operating or running charges. Operating or running charges are basically those expenses which are incurred on the running the vehicles or keeping the vehicles in mobility, are called as running or operating charges. It means that if the vehicle stands still or does not operate any day, then these expenses will not be incurred. These expenses of each vehicle may vary day to day, and examples like cost of petrol, oil and grease, driver, mechanic, cleaner, depreciation, tires, battery and all, because these are those expenses which are incurred on running the vehicles or keeping the vehicles as in mobility. These are called your running charges. We need to make certain change over here. Maintenance charges are not defined as running charges. They are only known as maintenance charges. So after doing subtotal, we will make the total, when we will find out the operating cost per ton kilometer, which will be total operating cost divided by total ton kilometer. Operating cost per passenger can also be identified by total operating cost upon passenger kilometer. Then we will get the revenue, net profit, ton kilometer carried, cost per ton kilometer. These are all part of your operating cost sheet. Now, moving on further, we need to understand that what we need from the following information, calculate total kilometer and total passenger kilometer. Number of buses 8, days operated in the month 25, trips made by each bus 2, distance of route 20 km one side, capacity of bus 80 passengers, normal passengers traveling 90% of capacity. So these are all your this is a question right in front of you. So what you will do, calculation of total kilometer. Calculation of total kilometer. We know number of buses are 8. That means 8 buses multiplied by 25 days multiplied by 2 trip multiplied by 20 km one side, and again it will be multiplied by 2 because trips made by each bus are 2 multiplied by 2. Sorry. It will be your 1600 kilometer. Next is calculation of total passenger kilometer. Passenger kilometer. Calculation of total passenger kilometer will be 8 buses multiplied by 25 days multiplied by 2 trip multiplied by 20 kilometer multiplied by 2 buses multiplied by 80 passengers and multiplied by 90%. So it will be 11,52,000 passenger kilometer. So this is all your this is a calculation of total kilometer, and this is a calculation of total passenger kilometer in case of operating costing. Now moving on further, we have another question in front of you which says, from the following information, calculate cost per kilometer of a vehicle. Value of vehicle 30,000, license fee per annum 1,000, insurance charges per annum 200, garage rent 1,200, driver's salary 400, cost of petrol per liter 2, kilometer run per liter 16, types and tire and maintenance 0.4, estimated life period 3 lakh kilometer, estimated annual income 12,000 kilometer. You need to ignore the interest on capital, and with the given information you need to prepare operating cost sheet. Now when we were talking about pro forma of a cost sheet, we didn't talk about if there is only one vehicle given. Pro forma related to one vehicle. This was the pro forma, which was the general pro forma, and there is one pro forma also which is related to preparation of cost sheet when only one vehicle is given. So in that particular case, you have a different performer. So let us see what is that performer. So this performer is applicable if there is only one vehicle and per kilometer operating cost is to be calculated. There is a simple format which you need to follow. First of all, you will write particulars, particulars. Next is per annum or per month. And apart from that, you have per kilometer. Standing charges. Then we will do the total standing charges. And we can also find standing charges per kilometer. Next is running and maintenance charges. Running and maintenance charges. Running and maintenance charges, we will mention all running and maintenance charges over here, and we will get operating cost per kilometer. So basically, this is a simple format where we are writing in one particular column all the running and maintenance charges, and this format is applicable when there is only one vehicle and per kilometer cost is to be calculated. And basically when we are having larger when we are having more adjustments and more vehicles, so this particular format is applicable. Now to solve this particular numerical, we will follow this format, which is it is a simple operating costing format. So let's start. First we need to operating cost sheet, and we know we will write over here annual mileage. Annual mileage. Annual mileage is 12,000 kilometer. 12,000 kilometer is the annual mileage. First is standing charges. Standing charges we have. Standing charges we have this license fee. License fee. Then we have insurance charges. Then we have garage rent. License fee per annum given to us is 1000. All these figures are in rupees. So license fee is 1000. Next is 200. Next is garage rent, which is 1200. Next is driver's salary. Driver's salary, which is 400, and the total comes out to be 2800. 2800. Standing charges per kilometer. It will be 2800 divided by 12,000, which will give you 0.23 as your standing charges per kilometer. Next is running charges. Running charges is depreciation is equal to cost minus scrap divided by life. So depreciation will be 30,000 minus 0 is a scrap value. Life is 3 lakh kilometers, which is given in the question. As you can see, estimated life period is 3 lakh kilometers. We will divide it by 3 lakh kilometers. We will get running charges as 0.10. Sorry, depreciation will be 0.10. Next is tire and maintenance. Tire and maintenance is given in the question as 0.40. You can see tire and maintenance 0.40 per kilometer. So it will be 0.40. Next is petrol, rupees 2 per 16 kilometer. So for 1 kilometer is equal to 2 divided by 16. So it will be 0.125. So this is operating cost per kilometer. We will get total of 0.855. So in case if you have missed any point or you have not understood any of the point, I will repeat for you. This is a operating cost sheet we are preparing. Operating cost sheet is like first of all we will note down all the standing charges. All standing charges, as I have already talked about, these are your fixed charges, which includes license fee, insurance charges, garage rent, driver salary. These are mentioned in your question. Then we will calculate standing charges per kilometer and we will get the figure of 0.23. Next is we will note down the running charges. Running and maintenance charges will be given in one particular heading. Depreciation we will calculate cost minus scrap upon life. Cost we all know it's 30,000 minus 0 because there is no scrap upon 3 lakh, and it will be 0.1. Tire and maintenance 0.4. Petrol rupees 2 per 16 kilometers, so for 1 kilometer is 2 by 16, 0.125. Then operating cost per kilometer 0.855. So this is problems related to operating cost sheet in the next session. Thank you so much for watching.